Am I the jerk for serving divorce papers to my ex at his job the day before he thought he was coming back home? I, 59 female, was married to my now ex, 57 male. We'll call him Ed for 10 years. Together for 13, but originally met him 40 years ago as teenagers. He was in my circle of friends, but we never dated. We used to live in Florida, but when I was 19, I moved back to Michigan, where I am originally from. 27 years later, I went back to the city in Florida, where I used to live, to visit friends. I ran into Ed while on vacation, and we began talking on the phone daily. 3 months later, he left Florida and moved in with me. 3 years later, we were married. Not my first, but his first. We had our ups and downs, but mainly we got along fine and didn't argue much. He would throw tantrums if things didn't go his way, and would punish me by sleeping on the edge of the bed, which was fine with me, or he would not talk to me and slam things. 2 years into our marriage, things went horribly wrong when he got into drugs. It was horrible. One night, I finally had enough and was on the phone with my mother-in-law telling her I was sending back to Florida when the sheriff's department knocked on my door. Someone had found my husband unconscious, severely beaten, in a ditch a block from our house. We lived in a small village with woods across the street. I raced to the hospital and didn't recognize him when I saw him. He was so swollen and bruised. Now, my husband was a man who could fight, and he was strong. Come to find out, it took 3 men to do this. They thought they could rob him since it was payday, but he had been home and purposely left his wallet at home. I sat with him 24/7 while he was in neurotrauma ICU. I slept on a couch in his room. I prayed over him. I bathed him and took care of him even after he came home. This actually saved his life. He got clean and went back to work full-time, always putting me and my grandson first before his needs. He went to work and came home. That's it. 4 years later, I finished my education and became an ordained priest, and have been the pastor at my church ever since. At first, he didn't mind, but then he would say things like, "I didn't sign up for this," even though I never pushed church on him. I knew he believed in God and he prayed daily. I would invite him to Christmas and Easter service, and he also came when I ordained, and when my grandson, who calls him Grandpa, was baptized. For several years, things were really good. Then suddenly he began coming home from work, showering, changing clothes, and leaving. At first, he said it was to watch whatever sports was playing on TV because we didn't have live TV. Then he told me he'd be back whenever he got back. Then things went back to how they were. We laughed a lot, we joked around, and I began getting the usual kiss goodbye before he left for work. One night, he had done his laundry like he always did, and I talked to him while he was folding it. He never wanted me to do his laundry, so that wasn't new. We ended the night laughing as he was trying on old clothes. The next morning, I woke up and went out to the living room to ask what time he had to be at work, but he was gone. I assumed he had to be there early. I walked back into the bedroom and saw his keys on the bed, which made me wonder why he would walk to work on such a cold day. It was December 1st. I started leaving the bedroom again and noticed his laundry basket missing, so I went to the laundry room and it wasn't there. I went back into the bedroom and noticed his closet empty. I called him to see where he was and asked if he had moved out, and of course his answer was yes. Come to find out, he had met a woman at his job who works for one of those shopping apps where people buy and deliver your groceries. He worked for a large grocery store chain. He had moved in with her. Over the next 6 months, he called almost daily and would say things like, "Our marriage will survive this. Just give me time." He even told me he would be mad if I began dating. During one of our phone calls, he told me he wasn't happy with her and was going down to Florida to visit family. He said he wanted to come back to me when he came back to Michigan. The plan was this. He would pack things that he couldn't live without but leave things at his new GF's house to make her think he was coming home to her. He planned on giving his 2-week notice while gone and planned on looking for another job when he came home. By this time, I knew I didn't want him back. I found my self-worth again and had made new friends with neighbors once he was gone. Come to find out, nobody liked him. Even the women at the gas station across the street told me how he flirted with them when he came in. Even an elder at my church found out he was cheating but didn't tell me because she didn't want to hurt me. So I went to the courthouse and got a divorce package and filled out all of the paperwork. Where I live, I was able to serve him myself. I decided that since he chose to end our marriage while working at the store, I would officially end it there. So, the day before he was supposed to fly to Florida, I made sure I looked really good. New hairstyle, makeup, and my outfit was sexy. I went to his job, found him, and handed him the divorce papers. I told him that he was wrong. Our marriage wasn't surviving this. You should have seen his face. He was actually upset with tears in his eyes, and for a moment I felt bad. Then I reminded myself what he had done to me. He didn't just leave me in the middle of the night, but he stopped talking and doing things with my grandson who thought Grandpa was the greatest. He left me in a house that I couldn't afford without him, and I would have been homeless if my church wouldn't have paid for an apartment. He told me women were stupid. He actually thought he could come home as if nothing happened. That was one thing he said to me on the phone because I never brought up the past. Last week, 6 months after our divorce was final, my car was repossessed. When we were together, he got 2 loans and I agreed to use my SUV as collateral because I never pictured my life without him. He stopped paying on his loans, so they took my car. I wasn't notified because they sent him the letters. They wanted me to pay off his loans to get it back. I burst out laughing and said that will never happen. So my question is, was I the jerk for serving him the way I did? Update. My now ex-husband got a loan while we were married and used my car as collateral. A year later, he left me for someone he met at work. He kept telling me that our marriage would survive. Just give him time. He ended up not being happy with her and planned to come back to me after he left to visit his family or of state. He planned on not telling his girlfriend he was leaving her and was only packing what he couldn't live without. His plan was to return home to me when he came home. The day before he left to visit family, I served him with divorce papers. 2 weeks ago, my car was repossessed, and the bank wanted me to pay my car off $3,000 and his 2 loans that he stopped paying on, $5,700. I was willing to pay my car off but told them I'd never pay for his loans and they refused. Here's what happened since my post. I found out where my car was being held at, 2 cities away. When I went to their website, I discovered that it's also the location where they sell the repossessed cars during an online auction. They hold it every Monday for 24 hours. I called and asked if I could have my belongings out of it, and they said yes. When I arrived, they had my things in a bag, including my license plate. I registered online and this past Monday began bidding on my car. I ended up buying my car for $2,700. When I showed up to get my car, the people laughed and said I'm not the first person to do this. I put my plate back on and came home. Now I know the bank can still come after me for the balance, but I honestly don't care if it hits my credit report. I don't use credit cards, and in October, my daughter closed on a brand new house. I had no other bills except my cell and utilities. I'm now living with her and my grandson. I was lucky enough to have enough time in to retire when my muscular dystrophy began causing more health issues, and that money goes to my other bank. My mother-in-law was happy to give me his new address so I can sue my ex for my half of our income tax return that he kept last year. She's even having us, me, daughter, grandson, stay with her when we visit Florida during my grandson's spring break. She's still calling Ed's girlfriend Teresa, Trina, Tracy, everything except her name, which does start with the letter T. I love this woman. Am I the jerk for telling my wife I want a divorce after she pointed out that as a stepdad I have to keep showing up no matter what happens? I, 39 male, married Lisa, 38 female, 4 years ago. She was divorced and had 2 kids with her ex. They split custody and didn't really co-parent because things were strained between them, but they could both be civil around the kids. The kids in question are 11 and 9 now, and Lisa and I have a 3-year-old together. Problems started when Lisa's ex started giving me attitude and being hostile when I was in his presence. He'd tell me not to speak to his kids and to know my place. Lisa would tell her ex to stop, and she warned him she'd document all of that, but he carried on with these hostile remarks in front of the kids. And eventually, the kids started treating me the same way. Lisa went back to court, and the judge ruled that she and her ex had to individually take some parenting classes, and that was it. Her ex carried on as he was, and the judge didn't do anything further. She was told it wasn't actually parental alienation. The kids had never minded Lisa saying they were our kids, or me saying stepkids. I followed their lead on what to call them, and I asked them if they'd like me to drop the step, and they said no. But Lisa started to have issues with it, and the kids started to have issues with her saying our kids instead of my kids, and the kids kicked up a fuss about it. The original conversations with me and them happened before the trouble with their dad started. The fuss started after his comments. The kids started telling me to stop saying stepkids, and they weren't my stepkids. Lisa wasn't happy about me saying stepkids either, but the kids didn't want me claiming them as anything, and my wife wanted me to claim them as my kids. She started encouraging more of a relationship between us, but the kids constantly disrespected me. She wanted me to take them more places, wanted me to be involved in more of their extracurricular activities. I was already involved to some degree, but she was mom, her ex was dad, and I was stepdad, and not equal to the bio parents. But she said I signed up to be their dad, and that was what I needed to be. And I tried to be there more. She said the kids would come around when they saw me being there for them. Their dad was more hostile to me. He was hostile to the child I share with Lisa, too. The kids started rejecting their half-sibling. They had never been super fond, but at least they would be kind around the youngest, but that did end, and they were angry about our child's presence. They repeated some of the things their dad did. Lisa went back to court over it all, and the judge still did nothing more. The more time that passes, the more Lisa gets angry that I won't step up and be their dad, but the more I try to be involved, the angrier her kids get and the more disrespect I get, and if I even try to correct it, they get more angry and show more disrespect. The final straw for me happened last week. I had picked the oldest up from practice, and in the car, they got mad at me for trying to ask how things went. It started with, "You're not my dad," but went up to saying they would accuse me of abusing them because then I'd be punished and would never see them again, and it would make them and their sibling happy because they hate me like their dad hates me. I told Lisa about this, and she told me I need to remain strong and carry on because they all need me. I asked her if she was serious, and she said yes. I told her that's a serious threat her child made. She corrected me and said our child. I told her if I said that, I would likely get physically attacked by one or both of her kids given their anger around it, and I told her they themselves have repeatedly said they are not my kids and I am not their dad. She told me I signed up for it by marrying her. I told her this changed things, and she said it didn't. I asked her if the kid or even both kids followed through on that promise, and I had to leave the home and couldn't see our child until I was cleared. Would she still expect me to keep showing up no matter what? She told me yes, and that even if her kids attacked me or even if they say more horrible things, it's my job to keep showing up and to be there. This made me leave. I told her before I left that I wanted a divorce and I would not stick around for that. She argued that I'm giving up, and in the end we'd win because we're the good guys if we keep being there. I asked her how she could be so sure. I told her it doesn't always work, and she told me it's because the steps are usually not as good as me, but I was always amazing to her kids and just needed to work harder. I've seen our child almost every day since I moved out. The house was Lisa's before our marriage. And I'm determined to follow through with the divorce. Lisa keeps telling me I need to reconsider and I need to man up, and her father even confronted me about it. Actually, while he was confronting me, we could hear Lisa and the kids fighting over her calling me their dad. But he repeated what she did, that I signed up to be their dad and should fight harder. So am I the jerk? Am I the jerk for telling my wife I want a divorce after she gave me a concussion? After work, I was playing with my son and went to the kitchen to throw out a diaper. When I walked into the room, my wife started shouting at me, claiming I hadn't been doing anything since I got home. Mind you, I had just spent 2 hours cleaning the kitchen, washing dishes, picking up the living room, and putting my daughter to bed before going to the living room to play with my son while I continued to pick up. I was frustrated by her comment and asked her what she meant and outlined everything I had been doing. I left the room and started to walk up the stairs to my living room. I was struck in the side of head with a sealed cardboard box weighing about 2 pounds. This was from about 15 feet away and thrown at full force, so I was dazed for a moment. After confronting her about why she did this, she continued to yell at me and didn't show any concern. Upset and in quite a bit of pain, I went to sit with my son and process what had just happened. After about 45 minutes, I was experiencing a growing headache and having some problems with the muscles in the right side of my face and jaw. I gave her my son and told her I had to go to the ER because something wasn't right. I ended up spending the night in a hotel, and the next day began contacting Resourced and scheduling follow medical and mental health appointments. The headache lasted 8 days, and I experienced a wide range of symptoms related to head injury. I missed over a full week of work, and it has been a pretty difficult experience navigating all my emotions while recovering and experiencing some bizarre cognitive issues. Needless to say, I've been keeping my distance from my wife while I've been recovering. Over the last few years, I've also been dealing with regular emotional abuse in the form of insults, constant belittling, and threats of divorce. This is probably the 6th incident of violent behavior from her in the last 7 years, and the only time she had used an object. And I have serious concern that she could have just as easily thrown something that could have broken my skull. I'm now seriously concerned about what will happen next time, and I'm not willing to wait and find out only to realize I should have left long ago. She has no diagnosed mental health disorders, but how out of control she is when she is angry is now very alarming, and it seems to be escalating. Additionally, she refuses to apologize for any of her words or actions since I met her, even after a diagnosed concussion. All she will say regarding this event are things like, "You know I didn't mean it, I can't aim that well." Over the last week, I was essentially living in a blacked-out bedroom and listening to audiobooks between my frequent naps. Up to yesterday, I have avoided engaging her in conversation, or anything that seems like I'm being baited into an argument. I don't have the mental or emotional capacity to handle an emotionally charged conversation, and wanted to focus on my recovery. Last night, I told her I've been walking on eggshells around her for the last year. I'm not comfortable being around her and don't see there being any way to mend the relationship after this. I just don't see myself being able to emotionally open up to someone who has injured me, ever. Her response has been to schedule marriage counseling, and she keeps making strange comments about how I have to be willing to make it work for counseling to be effective. She don't seem to have the ability to understand that this won't ever be water under the bridge, and that she's destroyed what was left of our relationship, which isn't much as there has been no physical intimacy in 2 years due to some medical complications from the pregnancy and birth of our son. She refuses any physical contact, and lately I have been struggling with the idea of continuing to live this strange celibate lifestyle for the sake of maintaining a stable home for my children. I've been open about this with my close friends and mentors, and know I need to leave because domestic violence rarely stops, and I want better for myself and my children. I decided to pursue divorcing her, and I think a large part of telling so many people is to force my own hand due to the embarrassment and shame that staying with her would cause. I told the therapist this and that I want his help navigating towards this goal, but I'm having a very hard time. I'm struggling with the idea of tearing my family apart, and the effect it will have on my 4-year-old daughter. Today she was being unusually sweet and wanted to sit with me. When I refused, she made me out to be the asshole and accused me of not wanting to try. I feel like I'm being heavily manipulated, and my desire to be the peacemaker and nurturer is being twisted against me. When I mentioned this, she got highly offended and accused me of wanting to destroy our family. This has been a wild experience and has been difficult to process. I have no experience with emotional or physical abuse in a relationship prior to this. Am I being the asshole for refusing to entertain opening up to her or participate in couples therapy due to fear of being manipulated? Should I stick to what I know to do intellectually and totally ignore my emotions and stick to my initial instinct to leave her? Follow up. I've made up my mind to stick to my intuition and move on from this relationship. My biggest concern is now for my children, and I hadn't really considered what would happen to them if she didn't have me as an outlet for her anger. This afternoon, I spoke to a highly recommended attorney, and she agreed to represent me and is helping to file a protection order. I really appreciate the effort that everyone put into helping me get my head straight and intend to follow up with several of you directly. That's the story. What do you think? Were they in the wrong or just standing up for themselves? Let me know in the comments. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and stay tuned for more Reddit stories.